doing some training for a company who you've heard of, for sure. One of the major retailers in the U.S. Doing some different things for them. I wanted to get on because I obviously have the sports, and that's the Angels Baseball Addicts and all that other sports stuff that I've always done, and that's really what the point of being the YouTube channel was. But really, that's always been a secondary thing to what I've actually done, which is business management, right? Business management. I was in high school, college. I mean, I always pretty much knew I wanted to do business management, which of course runs hand in hand with sports management and all of that because there's most of the same things are true, whether it's in the food and beverage industry, whether it's in retail, nonprofit. I've done work in all these different industries and fields over the last 20 or so years now, even over 20 years. And I can tell you that the things that make you successful are pretty standard across the board in any of those industries, right? Drive, motivation, caring about your people, having antiquated programs in place, right? Having real development, developing from within, right? Companies that are very successful understand how to develop their employees. They understand how to get the most out of that, how to squeeze every ounce, and how to create loyalty through how you treat people, whether it's in benefits programs or even some of the companies that don't offer the highest wages sometimes gain loyalty and have the great success because they are doing things that are creating buy-in, right? Whether it's programs, whether it's procedures, whether it's just culture, right? Just culture of how you treat people every day, even if you don't have the best income. Culture and loyalty and how you treat people goes a long way with having people gain tenure in your company. Tenure creates stability. Stability creates the ability to bring new people in and have them become a part of that stability moving forward because everybody eventually will either age out of a role or a job or lose their ability over time, whether it be from health or age or whatever, to continue on. And how you develop that culture over time and have those people help you develop the next ones is ultimately going to be something that creates sustainability so that when that generation it's time for them to stop working on that level or in that position or whatever, you have that carry on to go forward. And I can't tell you how many large companies that I've been a part of, whether it be training on a temporary basis, helping them in some kind of consulting area, actually working for them or doing anything across the country, right? I've worked anywhere from East Coast back to the West Coast to the Southwest. I've worked in Texas, California, Ohio. I've trained in, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee. I've done all these things up in, I can't even tell you how many places now, honestly, across the United States that I've been, whether it be driving or flying or going to a conference or going to a training program or going to this or going to that location or this location to help them here or help them do this or help them do that. Refurbs, closings, openings, grand openings, checking out locations, pet industry, nonprofit, retail. Like I've done all these different things because I like doing different things. And it's still amazing to me how many of these huge companies, when you're a big company, one of the things that happens when you have a successful concept, right? Like a CVS, right? Somewhere like that, where you grow so fast that your infrastructure just gets completely left behind. You're so worried about keeping competition out and opening more locations because of the profit that you're making that you forget that your POS systems aren't antiquated anymore, right? The people aren't getting trained properly, right? And then so you go in there and it's just like this empty shell of this beautiful facility where everybody's just wandering around miserable because there's no guidance, there's no follow up, there's no leadership, right? Unless you just happen to have somebody who's been there for a long time that provides it on an individual basis, but usually that's not good enough to last, right? Once again, going back to the sustainability piece of how to run a business, it's amazing to me. Right now I'm doing this stuff for a company and I am going into these like facilities that are these big, beautiful, wonderful facilities that have these processes where things are running through them and they're really turning stuff over and they're making huge money and huge profits. There's many different things going on as far as their business model, and they have absolutely no idea how to train anybody, and they know that, right? And you go in here and you talk to these people and they go, well, that got left behind, and that they changed this position to that position, and then this happened, and then that happened, and you're just sitting here and you're going, okay, well then what are we doing about it, right? Everybody wants to point out the problem or complain about it, but then like what's next, right? Like what's the next step? Like what are we going to do to correct these things to be successful, right? And they all go, oh well, we're not like that, and but then they walk over there and they don't do what they're supposed to, which is to train or to follow up or to do anything with their own people. They have no problem complaining about it. And I understand when you're in the day to day of it, time, trust me, I've seen it in management many times. You're in the day to day every day. And sometimes those little details are too exhausting because you're so focused on big picture, right? But those details are what builds you to have a better big picture, to solve those problems, right? And I would encourage anybody that does run a business, and if you do run a business successfully, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All these little details matter, right? How you treat people. Do you let them go to breaks on time, right? And I'm not talking about just because it's legally required. I'm saying for anybody to enjoy their job, enjoy their life, you need a break from work. If you've been working hard for several hours and you don't take a break, that's not good for you, right? And legally, depending on what state you're in or where you work, it's actually legal. But outside of that, which is obviously a whole nother set of problems, which is something a lot of companies also don't do, right? It's amazing to me the risk and liability that these companies take by just not developing people or having a streamlined program in place. Like it shouldn't be like you go in somewhere and it's an inconvenience to have someone new to develop, but then at the same time you're complaining that you never have the right amount of people to do what you need to do, right? Those two things don't make sense together, right? Because if you have the right training program, the right development program in place, then you have new people in, you will be able to have them be successful, and then you just have to find and understand how to hire. How do you do that? Well, it comes down to motivation, will, right? Like you can hire people and for high-end management in certain particular disciplines and trades, you need to hire for experience. But when you don't need to hire for experience is at the entry level, right? And what are you looking for at entry level? Like if somebody has experience, that's great, but that can actually be a detriment because if somebody's set in their ways or they're not willing to change, then that's not going to really help you on a long-term basis, right? So what happens is as things start falling through the cracks because you don't have systems in place, you don't have somebody that's actually dedicated to training people that takes them and says, hey, you're doing forklift training, come over here and we're going to actually develop that. Here's the forklift training program. We're going to walk through this, see if you have any questions, and then we're going to do a demonstration. We're going to have a video, and then we're going to go out and take a test drive in the parking lot around some cones and some pallets that we have set up, right? Just as an example. I'm not saying that's one that you should necessarily do. If your company doesn't use forklifts on a daily basis, that probably wouldn't apply, right? But that's an example of something that would be more of an antiquated process where you're actually setting someone up for success. You're following up what questions you have, what aren't you comfortable with. And here's the other thing that happens a lot too. Training is not showing someone something. So let's talk about the difference, right? Training and development is not going, hey, come over here, I'm going to show you how to do this. Okay? Training is a program, a development system, right? The act of training. There are pillars and points to hit that develop a habit over time that leads to being comfortable, safe, and successful in a role or responsibility. Okay, that's training. Showing someone something is, hey, come over here, I just want to show you what I did. Hey, cool, yeah, I put this sign in here, and that's how we're going to set this promotion. Okay, you showed somebody something once. That's not training. That's showing someone something, right? Training, it takes 21 times to build a habit. It takes 21 times to break a habit, right? Training is an ongoing process. And that's why these companies go, oh, well, we're going to send you over there for training. No, you're going to have some guy that's already overwhelmed show something. And then it's either going to take or it's not going to take based on. So if you have acumen as a person, you're going to figure out how to create some kind of training for yourself that establishes a habit based on someone showing you something, which is great. And if you have the ability to do that, but most people don't have that ability because they don't have 20 years in management experience to do that, right? So that's great if somebody can figure that out on their own, and a lot of people can, but then don't complain about not having the right people in place and being understaffed when you're not willing to make the investment to do actual training versus showing someone something from somebody who's already overwhelmed, who's already gone, well, they didn't tell me you were going to be here and blah, 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 till yesterday. And so I don't have anything in place. And so We're going to take somebody that makes, over $100,000 or whatever and have them go sweep for 8 hours, right? Because we don't want to have to be inconvenienced. But then we're also going to complain that we don't have any help, right? It's just funny to me how many companies do this or have a toxic culture. There's a company that I worked for about 6 months ago, and they talked to me and they said, "Oh, well, we have challenges at this location." Okay, great. So I do a couple weeks of groundwork and then I go into the location. I go into this location, and there's literally people at this location that work there that are running roughshod over the management there, that are basically saying, if you don't do this, then I'm going to leave. And they go, "Oh, well, I don't want you to leave." It's like, well, okay, if you have people that are doing that, you're already so out of control with your culture being so toxic that you should probably let that person leave. And honestly, it's probably in the long run, even though you're saying you can't train and develop anybody, can't find anybody, which means you need to work on your training and development program and figure that out, right? But if you don't have those things in place, you fear when people leave because oh, I'm not going to have any help. But the truth is it's actually a blessing because that person's voluntarily quitting, which means that you don't have to go through the process of trying to establish the paperwork to get them out the door because they're doing it themselves and volunteering. And you go, okay, great. Yes, I accept your resignation. Get out of here because you're going to help my culture by you leaving. And yes, there's going to be that initial few weeks or months of I have to train somebody else and it's going to be a little bit harder because I don't have somebody that knows how to do this to take it off my plate immediately. But that's what you want because ultimately you're going to have to do that anyway when that person eventually leaves, or your culture is going to get so bad that it's going to hurt your business in a way that's non-repairable. And then you're going to lose customers over it. And I guarantee you already are losing customers over somebody like that, that's that entitled, that thinks that they own your business from a perspective where they're literally running roughshod over what they do and don't want to do from the job responsibilities they agreed to when they got there and signed the paperwork to do. So, when somebody it's like when somebody shows you who they really are, believe them. Believe them. If somebody's not choosing to do this or not choosing to do that, believe that they're not going to do that. Believe that, right? Don't. So there's cooperation and training and development, but if you don't have that program when somebody walks through the door to set those precedents, to put those pillars in place, to have that accountability set up, don't expect it to randomly happen with somebody who's already toxic, who never had that and is constantly talking about, oh, well, now you have that program in place and this person, I never had that. So how many companies have I walked into, honestly, to help train, develop, do whatever with somebody, and they go, well, I'm not going to train that person because I never got that kind of training. Well, at what point does this vicious cycle end, right? Like, at what point do you go, I didn't get that training, so I'm going to make sure the next person gets it better than I did so that nobody else has to go through that? Why are you going, hey, let's repeat this because it's some vindictive thing because I didn't get it, right? Like, why don't we actually fix the problem and create a better culture, and then that's going to create a better success so that what you're talking about doesn't happen? Not let's all contribute to it by talking about it and being toxic about it and talking all day long. So these are just some of my pet peeves today because this is the part of my career that I never really talk about. But the truth is whether it's been at wonderful places that I've worked, whether it's been on the beautiful coast of California or in the middle of the country or in the south portion of the country or the eastern portion of the country, these things are all common threads, right? Training and development. You establish your culture and you decide what your company's going to be. You do that by establishing SOPs, programs, and following up on those things, right? You do it by establishing habits over time, not by showing somebody something once and hoping for the best. Hey, I got thrown trial by fire, so should you. That's not a good enough, and nobody that comes in your company is going to be excited to work there if you say things like that, right? That is something that is not going to ever help you develop. It's not going to ever help you grow. It's not going to help your business be sustainable, because even if you do, through either pricing or just sheer volume, make enough money to maintain your business to where you go, oh, well, we don't have to go back and address that. Eventually that will catch up with you at some point of your process somewhere, right? Either there's unethical things going on because nobody was trained to develop properly. Either customers, and any customer that's actually good at what at their own job recognizes these things every day when they walk through your business, when they walk through your store, through your company. They see this stuff and they go, hey, like, is that good? Is that not good? Oh, I don't know about this. Like, is the discount worth the squeeze of putting up with how they're treating their employees, that everybody looks miserable around me, that, like, it's just amazing to me that companies are willing to like talk about shrinkflation, right? Where they're shrinking product and charging you the same price and putting it in the same size, or they're shrinking the 20 ounce to 18 and still paying you the 20 ounce price. Like, they're coming up with all kinds of ways to create money, but what if they only took a small portion of that and put a training and development person in place that was in charge of that and was actually held to that standard to actually help improve your company? You wouldn't need to do that, because you would have people that could talk to sales. They could build a basket of sales better, because you would have training in place where they understood how to add on, how to make recommendations, how to make you more money that's going to make you more profit, how to sell more items, right? Because you would have those things in place through that initial process of developing those people. You wouldn't be talking constantly about not having the right people in place or not being able to find people, because you would have hired people that are motivated coming through the door, that understand what your process is going to be from the beginning, right? And that those are the foundational cultural pieces that build a business the right way. Not building your business that way and going, oh, well, we're just making plenty of money, so it doesn't matter. I was sitting on a board at a place called Belmont Park in San Diego. And every day I would go in there and I'd say, hey, guys, like, I noticed that we have this ethical issue, and this ethical issue going on. And they go, well, we've been making money for this long. Okay, so we're not going to fix any of these problems that just require a little bit of training and development. We have $4,000 in meal premiums based on fines of people not going to lunch on time, or taking too short of lunch, or not taking break policy and procedure with the labor laws and the Labor Board of California, which is a pretty serious offense. Seriously, and that's because we've always made money this far, so why bother? So, oh, we're still making money, right? How much longer are you going to make money doing that, right? Like, eventually it will catch up with you, whether it's through fines or penalties, or somebody's going to complain, or you're going to have a class action lawsuit from all these people that eventually get together that are tired of this. Like, it's just, and why? It's totally preventable. It's totally preventable through culture and development. How do you hire people? You hire people that are motivated, that want to work, that are moldable, so that you can do that. It's more important than just having experience. So, oh, I don't want to bother having to train them. So if they know how to do it already and I hire them, yeah, but they're also set in their way. So if there's a change that happens, they're not going to want to cooperate with you. And then they're going to become that toxic person that goes, well, that's not the way that I've always done it. You know what? Life changes, business changes, what success looks like changes. The most important ability is being motivated and adaptable, punctual. They show up, they want to be here. I can work with that, and we'll train you on all the other stuff, right? But these companies don't want to have to do the work to train anybody. So it just ends up being dumpster fire after dumpster fire after toxic dumpster fire. And the displacement between what's going on in the location, as opposed to the people in corporate or the recruiters that are telling you what's going to happen. Oh, this is what it is. But when you go to the actual location, it's complete displacement, because these two sides are not speaking to each other in this big company, right? They're not understanding, and if they are, the people at the store level say, "Oh yeah, no, it went great. Just leave us alone," right? Because we don't have the time or energy to deal with any of that. So we're just going to tell you what you want to hear, and then nothing ever gets fixed between the two, right? And so it just becomes this big dumpster fire of lack of communication, lack of accountability, lack of follow-up, lack of proper development and adjusting programs, because you're not getting real proper feedback. The most important thing is sincerity and being genuine in your company, because when people feel like they can be honest with you without just getting in trouble and losing their jobs, you can make real change. But you have to establish the culture that, hey, as long as you're doing your part, you have nothing to worry about, right? And we want to make sure that we make changes for the right reasons and do this the right way for the right thing, right? And so these companies, it's amazing to me, the lack of accountability, the lack of communication, the lack of just caring about what your overall quality is. Quantity is great, and you can make money with quantity, especially when you're selling products or services. But without quality, at least on some level, I'm not saying you have to have the perfect quality every single time, but if you don't at least have a base level of standard of quality that you can hold people to, that is actually occurring, for the most part, you're going to have exceptions. Okay, I understand that. But if you don't have a base level of that that's at some conceivable, real, at least meaningful standard, what are you running a business for? Like, it's amazing to me that there's just no purpose through that accountability that makes any sense at a lot of these corporations. And so, anyway, my point and my rant today is be accountable. It's okay. Like, follow up with people, help them build good habits, right? Don't show them something once, do things that are going to last. That's what builds success, right? That's what it looks like. That's where it gets to. The best companies in the world have employees that say that, right? That are happy, that actually get breaks, that actually feel like they're a part of the culture. Even if they're not in the decision making process, they feel like their voices are heard, and things like that. So, I mean, I think that's all lost in a lot of these corporations today. With all the ordering and everything else that goes on, it gets more and more it gets more and more displaced with the personal touch on a person to person level, because now there's an app and there's, hey, it's either right or it's wrong, and I'm mad at you if it's not right, and all this stuff, right? But from a business standpoint, with your own teams, and obviously with your guests and your customers that keep you there, you have to have a level of communication, understanding, and adjustment to what that is, and humility to not be offended by that, to be able to actually put things in place to fix issues. And that is just such a huge thing that gets missed. And it's such an easy thing, right? Because it just all starts at the beginning. Just go back to the beginning, fix the process at the beginning, and then slowly over time that will trickle. It's not going to happen in a day unless you're starting a business right now. And then, yeah, it's a little easier to establish it from the beginning. But it's just, to me, it's not rocket science. And it's amazing to me when you can have so many resources and devote so few of them to actually helping your business succeed, because you're more worried about the volume than you are the quality. And that is concerning. So, anyway, business lesson for the day: do right. Do right. There's a lot of companies not doing right. All right.